Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome to the Half Hour Podcast. I'm Brian, the creator of Half Hour. My goal here is simple, to add real value to your day, to help you learn, to help you lead, and to help you level up in your leadership journey. Whether it's a new perspective, a real-world example, or something you can put into practice right away. To check out my past episodes, go to itshalfhour.blog/podcast. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Half Hour Podcast. Today, I am going to be discussing an article that I recently wrote, which is entitled, When Your Body Leads Before Your Brain, Leadership in the Heat of the Moment. I wanted to discuss that a little bit more in depth and just chat a little bit about like what happens whenever we get into moments where we're in a heightened state. Maybe it's a show call, maybe it's a difficult conversation, maybe it's some news that you got right before you went into rehearsal that may not be work-related at all, and you have to deal with that while you're working and while you're leading, and how you can still show up authentically. So if you've ever run into this sort of issue and maybe you have learned how to deal with it, or maybe you are still kind of working through what that looks like and how to regulate that in your body, this episode is for you. So please stick around. If you like it, please hit the like button, subscribe, share it with someone in your network, friends, family, coworkers, whoever. Let's dig in. All right, so really what took this article into a whole, I guess, journey was just thinking about, you know, what I interact when I'm show calling specifically, but also whenever I'm preparing for a difficult conversation. You know, maybe you're going to give feedback to a coworker or teammate, or maybe it's talking to a difficult performer, or maybe it's telling the director that we have to go in a different direction, or maybe we can't, you know, really fulfill something that we want to do in the show due to a variety of reasons, whatever that is. And, but my example really was someone missing their cue, and that sort of, you know, being a pivotal cue or moment or something that they're supposed to do that I'm listening for or that I'm looking for. Could have been a line. It could have been something that's supposed to be on stage for the next act that is not there. And they weren't late. It's not like they came on stage late. They just weren't there. And in that moment, you go into this like fight or flight mode almost, and your amygdala is on fire, and you're like trying to survive, and you're like, no, this is not happening, or I need to figure what, you know, if I have to solve this, I have to figure out what's next. And everyone's listening to your voice on headset, and you have to come up with a solution. And, you know, there's only so much that you can prepare yourself for when things like that happen. And the best way for you to be able to work through that is to teach yourself, to prepare yourself, and to put practices in place in times when you're not in a heightened level in stress. And I talk about this, and I have before talked about this, where for emergency responses and how to deal with that stress when you're in an emergency situation. What you do is you assess the risk, and you plan for it, and you come up with procedures, and you walk through it with your team, and you decide who's responsible for what, and who's doing what, and who's calling who, and how is this all happening. And you come up with a scenario, and you practice the scenario, and you try to solve that problem in a situation that is very low stakes and very low stress. There's no audience, there's no real injury, but you walk through those emotions so that when something does happen, that you've practiced it, and your body is has that muscle memory on what to do, where to go, even a script potentially that you say, you know, like when there's a show stop, sometimes as stage managers, we have to go on the voice of God and we have to say, ladies and gentlemen, we're having a show stop. Please stand by. We'll be restarting momentarily, or whatever the script is that you use, or what you say. A lot of stage managers, they have that typed out, ready to go, because when you're in that moment, you're not thinking 100% clear, because you're focused on, how do I solve the situation? How do we make the situation safe? How do we start the show? All that sort of stuff. And so in order to alleviate having to think through all that every time that something happens, and to make it a little bit more consistent and more fluid, I and a lot of stage managers, they have scripts that are just there for when that happens. So that's a really great way to kind of like start, thinking about, what do you put into practice? So the fight or flight system isn't philosophical. It's actually biological. When we're under stress, like I was saying before, your amygdala, it doesn't care about how much experience you have. It doesn't care about even how many times you've gone over this scenario, but it just floods your body with cortisol. It increases your heart rate, and it is preparing your body to react fast and to survive, like I was saying. And it does it on its own. It's an amazing process, and it's good. It's there to help us be able to fight against whatever is coming at us. And in our much more modern society that we live in now, where we deal with things coming at us that are not necessarily quote unquote threats to our bodies, that's how it perceives the threat, is through its fight or flight response. There's also another type of bodily response that's called freeze or fawn, which is just as real. They're a little lesser known, but they can show up in going silent or disassociating or appeasing someone that is in power, or just to de-escalate the situation. Not because you're weak or that you can't interact with that, but your body is trying to protect you. It's essentially what it is. And when you're dealing with something like a medical emergency on stage or backstage or anywhere, your body perceives it as an actual danger to you. And sometimes it can be, but like I was saying before, in our modern society, it's not always like something that's actually going to harm us. It's just how our body perceives the situation and what's happening. And, for me, like, I get really hot, my face gets hot, and my heart starts beating a little bit faster. My palms sometimes get sweaty, and sort of getting, the next time this happens, try to at least be aware of those. I'm not saying stop everything and just, focus on 100% on that, because you may not be in a position to do that. But I think that just having the awareness around the fact that your body is reacting to that, and this doesn't have to be in a show stop. This could be someone said something that really pissed you off, and maybe they reacted to you a certain way, or you were giving feedback, or you were giving a note to someone and they responded to you, and your body reacted to that because it came at you a particular way that you didn't like, and your body is responding to that. And I think that having the awareness around how your body, like what those embodied reactions are, I think is really important and can really help you grow as a leader, and to start figuring out what that means for you. And it's different for every single person, right? So composure is a practice. It's not a personality. No one is born unshakable, or as a steel trap, or something that can't be destroyed. Like it is something that you have to practice, and it's something that you have to build over time, I think. What looks like grace under pressure is often regulation, muscle memory, like I was saying with emergencies, internal cues, and how you can use those as tools in the work that you're doing. Another thing is within this same sort of like unshakable leader, quote unquote, type of persona that is really a myth is that neutrality isn't the same as numbness, and trying to override your body completely can lead to burnout. It can lead to disconnection. It can lead to misreading the room, not knowing your audience. How you feel, and that includes the way your body feels. I mean, emotions are embodied, right? So I think that like having that emotional intelligence, understanding how your body is responding, is all informing how you think and how you respond and how you listen. All of that is super connected. And I think this is like the foundation of how to really be more aware of like your own communication defaults and how to practice on those. It certainly was for me, and starting to pay more attention to my embodied responses was a huge help. The last thing with this myth of the unshakable leader is that pretending to be fine isn't leadership. It doesn't build trust. It actually builds trust to be vulnerable and to ask for help and to say, hey, I'm struggling with this, or hey, this happened to me and I don't know what that is. You don't have to be performing all the time, and it leaves no room for growth for you when you pretend that everything is cool and that you did everything right. That just is it's a mask, it's a screen that you're blocking from letting people see who you really are, a shield, as Brene Brown puts it. It's a shield that we put in front of us. So yeah, you don't have to be perfect. No one's perfect. I'm a recovering perfectionist, so I can completely 100% relate to that. But you don't have to pretend to be fine if you are, if you're having some sort of reaction and you don't know what that is, or maybe you need help. So yeah, it's totally cool. Tools that can bring you back to yourself, to the moment, to being present, which I think is really the best strategy for not getting carried away, not getting distracted, staying focused on what you need to do. And that is naming it. Naming what you're feeling, naming what's happening. I think that like what I was saying before about being aware and acknowledging that your body is having some sort of response, I think that is a part of it. And to sort of live in that moment and to just like be fully aware of like, okay, like I'm having a reaction, my body's getting warm, my heart is beating faster. You don't have to really act on that necessarily. You can if it's super important, but I think just like sort of realizing, okay, yep, this is a stressful situation. I'm going into fight or flight right now, and I just need to like acknowledge that, And what I was saying before about how people have the scripts, I think that's a really important thing that you can do, and also to have things that you tell yourself that you, and not necessarily you tell yourself, but things that when you know your defaults, your awareness and your response is a little bit better, then you have these things that are like, okay, I'm going into fight or flight. I just need to breathe. I need to pause for like 2 seconds, take a deep breath. Maybe if you have the ability to like walk away and be somewhere quiet, sort of settle down for a second, collect yourself. That's something you can do. And another thing is to use your own body to calm itself. Breathing exercises, grounding techniques, meditation has been really helpful for me. Like standing on your feet and like actually feeling the ground beneath you, putting your hands on the table. It's anything that can really connect you to the environment, to the place that you are, I think is really helpful, because it really tells your body that you're like, you are somewhere, and it grounds you. I think that's the best way to do it. And the last section I think I want to talk about here is reframing our responses. Our body, reacts to things that happen to us, but it doesn't really, it never like betrays us or like goes against us. It's really an invitation to get curious about what's happening. And the closer that we can align our brain to our body, I think makes us just more aware and more emotionally intelligent and better communicators as a whole. So psychological stress, it doesn't mean that we are failing, and it doesn't mean like if we don't understand our body responses and what that is, it doesn't mean that we don't know anything about ourselves, or that we're not aware, or whatever, fill in the blank. It just means that you care. Like the way that your body responds, it just shows how much you care in what you're doing. You're tuned in. Your body is tuned in to what's happening, and that's really important. That is not nothing, and it's just important to figure out how to recognize what that is, so you can keep yourself grounded and course correct and be the best leader that you can be. Also, awareness expands your range. The more that you recognize your own defaults, your own embodied responses, the better you can choose your response instead of it hijacking you, Instead of having this feeling and it taking you on this fucking roller coaster of jumbled mess and not knowing how to navigate through that. When you have these systems in place and you have these scripts in place and you have an awareness, you have more options on how you can choose to respond or not respond. If you are in a position where you can take a break, you can take a breather, you can walk away. Like there's so many tactics that you can use to bring yourself back down to a more neutral spot before you respond or before you act or anything like that. And finally, leadership is what happens after the adrenaline. I think this is really important, is that I started this and framed this in how our body leads before our brain. And the leadership piece of it really comes in because your body is responding before your brain can catch up to what's happening. Sometimes your brain doesn't fully comprehend like what is happening until it's like, oh shit, like my body is responding to something, and your brain is trying to understand and process what those chemicals are and then translate them into a meaning that you understand. So the leadership piece is what happens after all of that. It's the reset, it's the repair, it's the reflection. It's what you do next that defines you, not what your nervous system did before you really knew what was happening. And so this, I think, sort of comes back to the idea that you pretending to be fine, that you have to pretend to be fine. I think that this kind of comes back to that, where it's like you have to acknowledge maybe you didn't respond very well. Maybe you had a stressful thing and your body was in fight or flight, and maybe you didn't respond well. And I think that circling back and being like, I'm really sorry, I didn't respond well there, and I want to like come back now that I'm in a better spot and I'm more neutral. Let's have that conversation again, And I think that there's opportunities for growth, for connection and building trust, and practicing what and what you've learned. So I used to think that leadership was all about just staying cool as a cucumber. Now I think it's about really staying connected to the moment and being aware of myself more than anything. Our bodies often speak before we do. That's why I think body language is so, so important. You can learn so much from body language without ever saying a word or having someone talk. Body language communicates a lot. The bodies, they carry the urgency, the care, the alertness that we have built throughout our experiences of what we do as stage managers and leaders in entertainment. But leadership, it isn't about shutting those down. It's about listening to them. It's about understanding them. And it's about practicing things that can shift our natural biological responses into something that we are familiar with and that we can navigate through a lot more successfully. When your heart races, when your stomach drops, when your palms sweat, it doesn't mean you're unqualified. It means you're present. It means you are paying attention to what is happening. And that's what our teams need more of, honestly. We need humans to be there. And especially in the whole AI revolution and how AI is really popping up in a lot of scenarios, being human is so important right now. And I have an article coming up soon where I'm talking about AI and how we can use AI, and that it's not a bad thing, that there is hope in being able to use AI, and there are a lot of really great use cases for AI. So keep an eye out for that article. But I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. And if you want to check out this article, it's in the show notes. You can click on that and you can read the full article. Again, thank you. If you like this, if you enjoy it, if you found value in this, please like, subscribe, share it with your network, and I will see you next time in the next episode.